Good afternoon. We're going to make one of the my favorite Italian desserts. It's fried cream. These are the ingredients you will need, at least to start off, to make the custard. We've got 2 cups of sugar. I tend to use 1 cup of Splenda and 1 cup of fine granular sugar, just to keep the calorie down a little bit. But you can use 2 cups of sugar, but I would prefer fine sugar. Here I've got 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 4 cups of whole milk. Don't use 2%, don't use skim milk, use whole milk. And here I have 4 egg yolks. These are extra large. You can use large, but you may end up, this is a very good important tip, if your custard while cooking doesn't seem to thicken properly or enough, add another egg yolk. Very simple. You can add it anytime during the process. And I keep the egg whites and that's going to be used tomorrow, but so save that and you're going to put it in the fridge. I also, my touch is to add a vanilla bean, a whole vanilla bean during the cooking of the custard. Okay, what I've done here is I put in the 4 egg yolks. I didn't scramble them, I just stirred them. You don't want to scramble, you're not making breakfast here. Add a little bit of milk, your flour, your sugar, and mix them well. And just keep stirring. You don't want lumps. It might be a good idea just to shift the flour if you want, but just can't probably stir it too much, but just stir it so everything is dissolved into the milk, egg, all the flour, all the sugar is mixed. I didn't put the vanilla bean in yet because I'll do that once it's in the saucepan. So just stir it. Make sure you don't have lumps. Don't blend it, don't scramble it. Just do a gentle stir. This is a pretty good size bowl. You can use a smaller one, but we're going to use a fairly good size saucepan to cook it in to make the custard. Try to avoid air bubbles. Just gently stir everything together. All right, now I've got the saucepan. I've been stirring the thing up for, I don't know, close to 5 minutes maybe. I just want to make sure everything's well blended, all the sugar and flour is absorbed. And I got a good sized saucepan. Bring a nice wooden spoon, or in this case spatula, and we're going to pour this into the saucepan. Very good. We're going to take the burner and put it on very low. You can always go up, but you don't want to cook the eggs. You're not making some sort of egg breakfast, let's say again. So just put it on simmer and it's going to require constant stirring. I'm going to go ahead and put my vanilla bean in there now. And it probably totally dissolve in there. But so we're going to just slowly stir it, but make sure you're scraping the bottom because it will thicken from the bottom first. Just this is going to be a long, tedious process, and just work the custard, or what will be custard, very slowly but constantly. Right now, everything's still room temperature, so we're going to let it sit for a couple minutes and let the thing warm up a little bit more. But once it starts to warm up, you're going to have to stir. You can adjust your burner a little bit if need be, but you want a very low heat to make the custard. Okay, it's been, I didn't watch the watch, but it's been about 45 minutes. It's getting pretty thick here, as you can see. I'm still going to give it a little more time. If it thickens too quickly, you probably have the heat a little bit too high, and you can back it down. I've got this plate here to pour the custard in to allow it to cool, but I'm going to still give it a few more minutes here, maybe 5. I can't, it's kind of something you learn to do over time, but it is pretty thick. But I'm going to do a little bit longer, because if it doesn't thicken enough, it won't hold together when you cut them up. What else was I going to say? Oh, always stir. It's very important to stir it. Scrape that bottom. Make sure you scrape it. You'll notice in the early stages that when you pull the spoon out, you've got some of that flour egg mix sticking to the spoon or the spatula. So you don't want that to happen, where otherwise it'll get more lumpy. All right, I'm gonna keep stirring here, cook it a little bit longer, and I'll probably have to pull that bean out because it didn't really dissolve, but I've seen it do that. Anyway, tastes good. Okay, I finished cooking the custard and scooped this onto this particular pan, which I like using for this dessert. It works well. It keeps it nice and rectangle, so I can cut squares or fingers out of the custard. This is still hot. I'm gonna let it cool. One of the tips I have for knowing if the custard was thick enough while cooking is to use the spatula, put it upright in the pan. If it stands still, it's thick enough. Anyhow, you can see it doesn't want to move because it's perfect, I think, or pretty close. Got to let this cool. Then I'm going to cover it, and this lip here will give me clearance so it disturb the surface too much. And then it goes in the fridge, sits overnight, and then I'll fry it tomorrow, and we'll go through that process. So I've got the egg whites that I didn't use in the fridge. I didn't need to add another egg yolk. The extra large eggs, 4 of them, seem to be pretty close to perfect. So we'll let this thing cool. I'll cover it, put it in the fridge, and let it finish setting up overnight. All right, so the custard's been sitting out in the fridge overnight. Took the cover off, the plastic, and as you can see, I already cut a few pieces off. The first couple, the oil was a little too hot. I don't use a temperature thermometer on the oil, so kind of do it by trial and error, I guess. I've got some flour here and the egg whites that were left over from yesterday. It's all here, and I'm going to take a knife, put a little powder on it to maybe make it less sticky, and we're going to cut a thin slice, maybe 3/4 of an inch along the edge here. You can see it kind of cuts pretty nicely. If there's extra custard on here, I scrape it off, and I'm going to make about 3 pieces here. So I'm going to cut like so, and going to lift this out. This custard's fairly soft, and put it in the flour and roll it in flour. While it's in the flour, I go ahead and shape it a little bit. Custard's a little bit on the thicker side, so you can shape it to desired size. Go ahead and lift this out. This is a little bit on the long side, so maybe a little bit harder to manage. I'm going to put it in the egg whites and roll it, get it coated, and lift this up like so. Let it drip. Not much dripping there, a little bit. I'm going to move over to the frying pan and drop it in the frying pan. I'm only going to be cooking this about 30 seconds at the most. I'm going to roll it a little bit, get it golden brown, like so. It's browning just about right. And we're going to go scoop it out. Let the oil drip a little bit, and put it on the plate with the others. And that's it, other than we're going to sprinkle cinnamon on the tops of them. Coat it. Okay, I'm going to show you a couple of tips. You'll see that the custard gets on the knife, so I scrape it, put a little flour on it so it doesn't stick. Anyhow, I'm going to pull this piece out here, and what you might notice, this is a kind of a tip here. It looks more like a thumb than a finger. But what you can do, just like you would in gnocchi, is roll it. Get it thinner. You'll get a nice even covering of flour, and you'll get a longer, slender, nice round shape. Then you can lift it out Put it in your egg white, roll it, get it completely covered. Lift it out again, let it drip a little bit. And once it drips, you can carry it over to the hot oil. And if it bubbles up, just knock down the egg bubbles down. Rotate. You know, initially I said 30 seconds, that's like max. Really, it's the right oil temperature, you're looking at 20 seconds. But you're looking for that nice golden brown look, which is about where it's at right now. You don't want to fry the inside of the custard. You want to keep that as custard and then put it on your plate and you're done. Of course, you can see it does make a mess, but that's part of the deal.